Hello, everybody. Let's see if Nellie is here or not. Nellie is actually in an airport, I think, in Baltimore. Hi, Doris. How's everybody doing this morning? We'll wait a little while while people come in. Is the sound okay? Welcome, Rosario and Maria and guest. That might be Nellie. So, Tyrios. And of course, dear Doris and Ahmed and another Maria. Where's everybody from? I'm in North Carolina, which is in the southeastern part of the U.S. And Doris, are you still in Argentina, or did you head back to Venezuela? Good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning here. Are you still in Buenos Aires, Doris? Never heard of that one. Good morning, good morning. How's the weather where everybody is? We're kind of cold this morning. Yesterday it was almost 80 degrees. And today I think we're going to be lucky if we get out of the 60s. San Salvador de Jujuy. Hello, Ahmed. How's the weather where you are? Can you hear today? We're in Italy, Rosaria. In the north of Argentina. Egypt. Good evening. Naples. I have relatives in Crotone and Yacurzo and also in Naples. Great, great. Canada, yay! Oh, me too, Doris. I haven't seen much, only Bologna and Riccione and things in between. Yay! Oh, lovely, all these Napolitanos. Makes me happy. Oh, Doris, I'm jealous. Okay, well, I think we should get started. Oops, Ahmed can't hear me again. Let me see. Ahmed, can you... Sorry. Can you log off and log back on? That's the normal fix for almost any technical problem, is logging off and logging back on. My sound looks a little low from over here. If you have any trouble with your sound, it looks a little better now. Go ahead and click on that little speaker icon above my head. And there is a toggle for the volume there. I'll write this down. We had someone come in. Let me say hello. Oh, hello, Claudia and Agile Bill. I knew you were going to be here. I'm not actually going to be doing a proper history of higher education in virtual worlds, which is why the name history came off my title. And I have some new research that I just read this morning. So we've got a couple of whiteboards here of oddly done tables to tell you about some of the new research that's coming out. Hello, Susanna. Welcome. Everybody happy? Okay, well, we're going to get started. So I'm Nancy Grody, and I'm a part-time professor of psychology at North Central University, which is an online university, and I teach statistics to undergraduates and master students, basic statistics, nothing too taxing, because I don't go there. But what I mainly teach is history of psychology for the master's students and the doctoral students, which is a lot of fun. Oh, good morning to New York. I bet it's a little cool up there. And I'm also an online teacher and all kinds of other stuff in different areas. And you can see that in my biography if you go and take a look at the presenter bios in the Moodle classroom. Hello, Judy. Welcome. I think the last time I saw Judy, she was speaking. Oh, you couldn't find the YouTube link from yesterday's class. Doris, I can't go out and get that because they're probably going to be recording from my computer. So if you could find it, the class is uploaded in the SLMOOC 2016 playlist already, and so is the dance. The dance, I'm sorry, is not available in Germany at the moment because it's got some music in there from the live stream. And I'm going to make a second version that uses free music off of YouTube, but I haven't done that as yet. So if you can find that for us, Doris, that'd be great, and put that in the link, because both Nellie's recording of the opening ceremonies on WizIQ and the 8 minutes of the 80 minutes of our opening dance are available for everybody except people living in Germany on YouTube at the moment. Oh, I'm glad on it. That's fantastic. Well, today what we're going to do, let me get my pointer. We're going to talk about a little bit about the history of the internet and some advantages and disadvantages of using virtual worlds. I'm going to give you some informal stats on universities in Second Life, which I think have changed since last year to this. I actually did the first presentation of this in, hey Judy, in the November Moodle MOOC conference, and then I updated it for today, which is why we have 2 whiteboards of new data. And some formal stats from Australia, the Australia and New Zealand Virtual Working Group, and these are a group of academics who have done an enormous amount of research on virtual world education and all kinds of things. They've been very much in the forefront of providing research that shows that teaching in virtual worlds or training or whatever can be very useful. And we're going to talk about that later. And the piece of research that I read this morning is an article that they published. I found it yesterday, kind of late in the evening. They published this article in the Journal of Education, Technology, and Society in the very end of the last issue of 2015. So I have some data from that. So formal stats from them in 2 iterations, one in PowerPoint and some more on the whiteboards. We're going to talk a little bit about some examples of usages, but this course is really going to bring you into contact with an enormous number of very creative usages of virtual worlds, not just in higher education, but in language learning and training and professional development for all of us and so on. So that's going to do much more. Oh dear. Well, I'm not quite sure how that happened because I don't see that here, and I don't know how to fix that for you, Judy, except to say maybe pop out and come back in. Claudia, yeah, I'm a professor, a part-time professor of psychology at North Central University in Arizona, and actually Dr. John Orlando, who's from the business school and was part of the group of teachers who were involved with the Center for Faculty Excellence there. He is also going to be giving a talk in the MOOC later on. There's a black screen blocking. Why would there be a black screen blocking? I have no idea. And you can't see the slides. Unfortunately, I can't go out again and come back in because that will close off the recording, and the recording is already going. So how many of you, it's a YouTube screen. Okay, well, the media library is not open. Let me open it up and shut it up. Did that take it out of the way? Oh, good. Okay, that's so funny. It wasn't showing here. So, okay, yay. We're in beeswax. So let me start again. We're going to talk about a little history, some advantages and disadvantages, informal stats on universities in Second Life that I did last November, some formal stats from this amazing research and teaching group from Australia and New Zealand and Asia in general, and some examples of usages. And I was saying the course itself is the best way to find out about these kinds of usages. And also, if you're in Second Life and you go to the Second Life MOOC headquarters and go to the second floor, the presentations from last year are available up there. So hopefully, and the year before, hopefully we'll be on the third floor not too long from now. So there are a lot of usages that you're going to see, but I'll give you a couple other ones. And then some places where you can find more information about higher education in virtual worlds. Oof, I'm so glad that worked out. So these are pictures, actually, this is from 2014, I believe. This was the auditorium at the University of San Martin de Porres, which is very active in Second Life, and Amparo Cervantes was giving a talk at the time. I have a picture of her, but there are many pictures around. This was Tom Hodgers, who's an English language teacher from Venezuela, originally from the UK. Many of you may know him, and he was one of our organizers in 2014. This was Nellie at David Deed's lecture in 2014, which was very interesting. And then this is just a picture of how different we all can be in virtual worlds, from flowers to mice to people. It was taken at a virtual world education roundtable that's organized by Callie Pizarro, who the avatar of a person who's at Glasgow Caledonian University, and they have been offering this roundtable every Thursday for many years in Second Life, and it's very useful. The discussions change all the time, and people get together. It's just a wonderful environment. But it just shows you that we're not always just folks. Sometimes we're robots, paper bags, dinosaurs, flowers, and mice, and many, many other kinds of things, which is one of the things that makes it fun. I read an article this morning that said that before there were virtual worlds, but as the internet kind of developed and all this kind of communication of from computer to computer started to happen over a very long period of time, there were always educators and always trainers thinking about the possible usages of these new kinds of connections, and that people were talking about this back in the 80s when the internet itself had not even opened. The internet itself opened to public use in 1991, and as you know from Nellie's biography, she started teaching online in 1992. But there were lots of developments that allowed all of this to happen, and there's a wonderful timeline on the internet called The History of the Internet, and it gives you an excellent look at all of the various steps that were needed to get us here. And then as you see down here, there's another web history project that's very good called Dippity.com. Now some of their resources come and go, so this particular video is no longer available, at least it wasn't the last time I looked. But they have a section of it called Virtual Worlds, and they go back to the very first virtual world. This one was previewed in a talk given by a man named Bruce Dahmer in 2009, and it was literally a floating head world. That's all they had. They had the ground, they had the grass, they had the sky, and you could make a head, and you could talk in voice to each other. So you could get together in this kind of what we think of as a fairly featureless space, but for the time was an astonishing virtual world. It allowed them, even though they were floating heads, and I wish this was still available, because they talk about how they talk to each other and how they live in different countries, and one of the heads keeps rotating. It keeps turning around and turning around upside down. I think it's this guy, as they're discussing how this actually makes meetings and social gatherings for them as colleagues and collaborators much easier, as well as more fun, even though basically this was it. It was a talking head world. So what makes a virtual world? A virtual world is visual immersion, and it's visual immersion to the extent that you really feel as if you're there. So there's a very deep and permeating sense of co-presence. In a way, that's the downside of that is if you're in a virtual world that's a little wild, you don't feel so safe because you feel like you are personally in an environment that might be threatening. Second Life and a lot of these other spaces that have been built and are used by people like us, educators and trainers and librarians and artists and so on, tend not to be so unsafe. I think I'm going the way of Nellie this morning. Just a second, let me take a drink. the display is 3D, so you see depth and you see distance around you. It may be building as your avatar, that person who represents you wanders through the environment, but it very much gives you a feel of being there. There's a, as they say in English, there is a there. Just to make life difficult. And reality is also a very very close step away, meaning that you can generally solve your problems by just closing your browser or getting off the viewer or somehow exiting the field. So you know that you're there, you know what's around you in the real world, but you're also becoming very immersed and absorbed in the world in front of you. And this is how computer games obviously become such an important environment for so many people. It's machine-based, it's a computer-based environment that feels complete even when it's not exactly, even when you're only a floating head. And it provides, this is supposed to say, for social connections and collaborative learning. And as you'll see later, that's one of the key important things about key benefits of being in a virtual world. So Doris is saying that Wikipedia defines a virtual world as a massively multiplayer online world, a computer-based simulated environment populated by users who can create a personal avatar and simultaneously and independently explore the virtual world. All of these things are very important. Textual is what we had to begin with. I mean, back in the 70s, you could get on a mainframe computer if you had the luck to have a technical support guy in the family and play a strategy game by text only, where a text would come out and say, you're now in a castle and you're now doing this and you can go this way or that way. What are you going to do? And you would type in, I want to go left. I want to see what's there. So these things were amazingly immersive, even without the visual aspect. But of course, the visual aspect is even more important. And I think what's also equally important for all of us is that these are resident created places. So that means while there may be materials that are provided, or a framework, or I spelled places wrong, a framework or a terrain provided to us by the company that has built this virtual world, we are able to create so much of what's in that world, and that's extremely important. And it also allows for inspiration, because everybody's doing that, and you can see what people are thinking and what people can do and what people want to do. Yeah, and Dora says it's a sandbox, and a sandbox is a word that I don't know what it would be called in Italy, for instance, but when you're a child, in the old days, your parents would build you a little box in the backyard that had sand in it, and you could go sit in it as a child and build sand castles or whatever you wanted. So that's what the idea of a sandbox is. It's a place where you can come and play, and through play, you can learn and teach. So this is really interesting. Back in 1998, over a summer, a University of California, Santa Cruz group of students and IT guys and an international set of collaborators as well built a virtual world simply for the use of students inside of the University of California at Santa Cruz. This is the first example of a university-based location or virtual world that I know of, and there may be others in other countries. You can see these two videos. They are available. I couldn't bring them up into the media library because they're not YouTube, but you can find it here on this second link, this particular thing. And it's really wonderful if you click on it and watch it go through. This is not the lack of visual acuity of my my onboard print screen facility. This is really what the graphics look like. So you could barely see the avatar, you could barely see the surroundings, but it's very engaging. It's absolutely wonderful. And I wanted to show you one from a little bit later. Let me go back I'll do that right after this, because this is the beginning of Linden World, and Linden World is what became Second Life, and Second Life is more than 10 years old, so it has evolved significantly from the very early days when this is what your avatar would look like. And someone had said, I don't know how to create Invitado. Don't worry, we are having workshops and there'll be many opportunities to learn how to create. These avatars, as you can see, were not very detailed. They were somewhat human looking, but the proportions of heads to bodies was maybe not so good. This evolved from work that Linden Lab was doing prior to this. They were, as I understood it, I think Hansel Bill is the guy that told me what was going on there. They were doing programming for uses of large databases, and had to show their customers how to use a particular thing that they were working on, and they felt that the best way to do it was to create a virtual world on their servers, invite their customers to come in, and then try out the system and see whether or not this particular product was going to work for them. So that was how it started. So they weren't providers of social connection for all of us. They were doing a practical thing that had to do with their original product. They discovered, though, after having set this up, that their staff and their clients' staff who had logons for the purpose of the demonstration were coming back into this little virtual world just to play around, just to learn how to make a new hat or clothes or kick a ball or walk around and see what was there. And they were using this environment to such a degree that the folks who were running Linden Laboratories at the time said, gee, this could be a product on its own. So when Second Life came out into the world, went public, this was what it looked like. It had a tiny little area that was the mainland and a few little islands, and then what was called the outland. Now it's shrunk a little bit since over the last 3 or 4 years, but it is still massive at this point. And you can get, if you download this PowerPoint after the class, you'll be able to get access to this YouTube video, the history of Second Life on the Second Life wiki, and then also this web history project that I've spoken about before, and see how things worked in those early days. Now, what I wanted to do, and which was why the media thing was on to begin with, was I wanted to try and show you this this little thing that was put together by the University of South Queensland in Australia. So if you can see this, I hope you can see this. If you can't see this, it will be uploaded into the SLMOOC playlist after the class. But it's something that they put together about 8 or 9 years ago. but that gives you enough information about how things had progressed from 2002 when Second Life was made public to speakers and to users rather in the public domain. Um, so in 2007, the University of Southern Queensland in Australia is using it for all kinds of things, different kinds of classes that it's teaching in the university, pulling people together for virtual conferences. There's all kinds of different things going on. So there was a movement from just wandering in and seeing what you could do to using these spaces for real purposes. And hype was created in the media of many countries about how this was the next thing, and we were all going to be connecting through these virtual worlds. There were a couple of movies made about how this would change our lives and all this kind of stuff. And well, we'll talk about hype in a little bit, but it was a very exciting moment in time, and it's still a very exciting moment for those of us who use virtual worlds of one sort or another for different purposes. So this is Bradley University, where we are going to be having a presentation on communities by Valerie Hill of Bradley University. And I just wanted to give you some illustrations that were from our course so you could see that. So I went over there yesterday and took some pictures, which I also suggest that you do. Not only can you use the teleport board in Second Life, but you can also search for some of these universities, say Bradley University in Second Life, universities in Second Life, and so on your search engine and see what comes up, because frequently a lot of the universities and faculty people who use these areas to teach will have blogs, or their students will have blogs, or there'll be YouTube videos or Vimeo videos or so on. So you can find out lots of information by just exploring either physically in Second Life or through the internet. This is the University of New Mexico. Becky Adams, also known as Ellie Pinion, will be giving us a talk from this campus. So this is another one that we're going to be visiting, and you can grab the URL and visit anytime you want. And these are live if you download the PowerPoint. So what are the advantages of virtual worlds? Well, obviously there's this shared real-time experience. You're there together. You're there together with a group of other learners, with a group of colleagues, or you're by yourself exploring, or you're wandering around just with a couple of your friends. Which is why some people who get into a virtual world and don't find anybody in the area they're in sometimes get a little bit lonely. And as Doris says, one of the best ways to do that is to find groups that are interested in the things you're interested in. And you can do that, I'll show you in a little while, by clicking on that search button in Second Life and just putting a term in that speaks to your passion, whatever you're interested in. And I'll guarantee there's a group for whatever you're interested in, and there may well be a sim for whatever you're interested in. And then you can head out there and explore. The immersive nature of the environment makes it all feel very first world, very real. And mainly, I mean, we're mental beings and our lives are built up with experience and memories of experience. So that's what you're getting from an immersive environment as well. And there's lots of detail. You can wander around different people's builds and see what's going on. And what they've put up, what they've worked on, even just going shopping in some of the shopping malls. It's astonishing to see what people can do. Yeah, and exactly right. Doris says, click on everything. That's sometimes you can get yourself in trouble. My husband once got too close to a snake and it bit him and it put a bad script into his avatar and he fell down. But, you know, otherwise, take a chance, click on everything. There are opportunities for real-world collaboration. As you can tell, Nellie and Doris and I are from different countries on different parts, different sides of the Panama Canal. Essentially, we're in the same hemisphere, but different countries. And a lot of our close colleagues are from all over the world. So you can get together with people. You're limited by time, obviously, not by space, but by time, because you'll find many people from Asia and Australia in world very early in the morning for those of us in the Western Hemisphere, and vice versa for them. So time is kind of a delimiter, but you can really be there. Yeah, when in trouble, you can teleport somewhere else, but Alexander's right. You can also just run, and that helps. And you can hit the quit button and come back somewhere else. Another advantage is building and scripting. You can set up a teaching environment that has the materials that you need. As you can tell from the SLMOOC headquarters, there's lots of ways to give people information. There's also lots of ways to give them practical experiences with equipment that they may need to use in their job, or with a procedure that they may need to use in their job, or with a technical concept, or with theater, or with language, many other things. So you can learn to build things, you can learn to script, you can go out and find many free things to help you. We'll have a couple of workshops about that. And you can kind of customize what's around you. It's a process. It takes a while. You can't expect to be able to do it the first day that you get into a virtual world, but it's a potential on the future. And there's always low cost or free meeting space and in-world gadgets that you can get to help with things. Note cards are extremely important, as you can tell from the SLMOOC wall boards. Note cards convey information. You can use them to write your homework. You can do a lot of stuff with note cards. And there's a system for instructors to make a book that it looks like a book. You pull it up on your screen, you click on it, it opens up, and you can roll through the pages. Eugenia Calderon uses books that she makes herself for all of her classes in Spanish. The social distance is both close and far. You have that ability to be together with a group of people. If you find you're uncomfortable with that particular group of people, as Alexander said, you can run, you can teleport home, you can teleport somewhere else, or you can close off the system and come back to a different location. One really important thing is this transfer of learning to real world situations. If you take a look at the Second Life at secondlife.com, you can see some testimonials and articles by different people who have used Second Life for different purposes. If you look under education or training, for instance, the Border Patrol of, I think it was the Canadian Border Patrol, very early on in Second Life, were using Second Life to build up a facsimile of their border situation, and to then train their prospective border control people who were going through the course to become a customs agent at a border. Train them in the Second Life environment and give them real world situations that they acted out and that they had to respond to, and so on. And that kind of information moves out. It's retained very well because it's learned in an active and immersive way, and it moves out that learning into the real world situation. For a long time, Metropolitan, I think it was London, University of London, had a hospital facility, I'm not sure if it's still there, in which they were training individuals to interact with patients. And it was set up as a hospital. There was a little robot in a bed who was the patient. There was a way for the students to take a look and do a diagnosis and so on. I'll upload a video I did a long time ago in 2010, I think it was, which was a tour of how Second Life could be used for education, and it has a walkthrough in that facility. So a lot of what you learn there, you are transferring out because it's an experience, and then you have your memory of the experience. You have the whole situation in your head. It's the same kind of thing you might be able to do in real life, but you're being able to do it in a way that's not costing your institution an enormous amount of money, and that feels very, very real. And you're safe while you're doing it too. You're in a situation where all you have to do is click that off button or run away, or hit the teleport button and go someplace more pleasant if you're uncomfortable in a situation. Yeah, I think, Doris, that's a marvelous idea. I have a challenge at the end too, and that's part of that as well. So now the disadvantages, first, I'm not putting University of Western Australia or University of Texas, El Paso here because they provide disadvantageous experiences in Second Life. These are just more illustrations of areas that are in our class. This one is not. University of Western Australia is a very old university, long time running in Second Life, and it's an ever-changing campus, and it's really wonderful to go tour this. This is just a corner of the University of Texas at El Paso. This is where our Afro-Latino Foodways Museum talk is going to take place later in the month. And they have a placita, they have lots of other stuff going on there, but this is the landing place that will go for that lecture, and it's very beautifully done. So the disadvantages, as I alluded to before, are the time zones, and language barriers is the other thing. We do have what's called a universal translator in Second Life, and it does an okay job. I don't know what really runs it, if it's Google Translate or what's built in there, but it can really help you if you're in a group of educators from all over the world. And not everybody speaks the same language. It's plunked down in the middle of the group. It recognizes the avatars around. You pick a language to translate into, and then people can type their own language into the text, and it will be translated for the rest of the folks in the group. So that helps with the language barrier. There's also but sometimes that's difficult to do. There's not a translator around, and it's a little bit hard to do body language to get across your point in virtual worlds. Eventually, I think they'll get better at gesturing and so on, but we can't play charades the way we do in life. My husband and I once stayed a weekend at some friends, at a house of some friends in Bologna, and they spoke very little English and very little Spanish, which my husband also speaks, and we spoke virtually no Italian, and we got through the whole weekend in a marvelous way just by playing charades, essentially, pointing and smiling and making, trying to indicate some way through gesturing what we were interested in. So that can't be done as yet in virtual worlds. And then there's the time zones. I've gone to many classes in Second Life that start at 2 a.m. in the morning, my time, and have been very pleased by people who have come to my class when it's 3 a.m. at their time. So that's also something that's a problem. Technological requirements is a big problem. This is why we have 800 some students in the course, and probably only 8 to 16 of you, or 20 of you maybe, will be in Second Life, because it's difficult in many places to have the amount of bandwidth that you need to get into a virtual world that's as developed as Second Life. It's easier to get into Reaction Grid, say, or some of the other newer worlds like DigiWorld, because they have less of a technological load for your computer. But that's a problem, that we all have differing amounts of a capacity where we live. There's a pressure to chat and play. You come for a course, you come to build your assignment, you come to learn about physics, and you find somebody and off you go to a casino. So sometimes you have to be very disciplined in Second Life in a way that you would not be in a classroom situation, because you're surrounded by many distracting things. There are also assumptions about etiquette that have to change. If you are chatting with someone who is not chatting back to you at the same speed that you are typing to them, it may be that their computer is slower than yours, that they have more difficulty typing than you do. So you learn over time to be very, very patient when you're in a text chat with somebody, and also when you're in a voice chat, because sometimes, it's a while before you get the technology to the point where you can really hear people properly. There are too many rules. Some folks have left Second Life because it's restricting them too much. They can't be naked everywhere. They can't do bad things. They can't be, it's a grid, exactly. you can't go and knock down people's bills. You can't be a griefer and drop boxes everywhere and make mischief. And so they're not happy about that. Or you're living in a role-playing sim, and role-playing sims typically have rules. When I first came to the Chilbo community, it was very much organized and governed at the time, and uh, that was kind of difficult. Sometimes you would put something in the window of your shop and somebody had something to say about it. They didn't like the way it looked. So now the community is a little more loosely defined. We're more of a neighborhood than a place with rules. There can also be too few rules. A lot of people are used to World of Warcraft, or they're used to computer games like Civilization or SimCity or whatever it might be, whether they're downloadable on your computer or a multiplayer on the online, and they get to Second Life and discover it's a huge collection of all types of environments, and there aren't any rules. So if you come in thinking you can win something by going through this step to that step to that step, that maybe is true in a particular small area, but it's not going to be true grid wide. So that's another thing people find difficult. Some folks find the whole thing just very uncomfortable. They don't think of themselves as a person that's ever played in a computer game. They don't understand that there's a difference between a serious game or gamification of education or training and just playing. And they don't realize that play and learning go together all the time, and do so very well. So they find it uncomfortable for whatever reason. They find it uncomfortable and they don't want to be there. And so that can be a disadvantage if you have a large group of students and someone in that group or several someones in that group are finding it very uncomfortable and too difficult to be there. Welcome, Jarek. Don't worry. Nobody can be late in these things. It's just perfectly okay whenever you show up. We're happy to see you. And there's always the recording for later. And then the final problem is it can be too comfortable. Can be comfortable to the point of addiction where you are there all the time. And one of my original, I love computer games, so one of my original rules for myself when I got into Second Life was to have a purpose when I was there, and to be doing something that benefited my discipline and benefited people around me, and also to just make social collaborations with people with similar interests, so that there was a purpose to my being in world. Because I figured if I didn't do that, I would probably be there all the time, and my husband would be hungry, and the house would be a mess. So you have to kind of figure out how you are with the virtual world and what it's about. Now, this is a picture of Odd Professor Snoodle's Science Museum and installation. I have another illustration and a video of her a little bit later. And she was a speaker in SLMOOC 2014 and I think 2015 as well. So what she's done is an example of the affordances of virtual worlds. She's a physics teacher at the National Institute for the Deaf here in the United States. So her students find it difficult many of her students find it difficult to communicate verbally, and to get physics concepts is very abstract language and can be difficult for folk. So what she decided to do for her introductory students in physics is set up many of their tasks and their concepts that they needed to learn in virtual worlds, so that they could play with an installation and through play understand the physics concepts. So the affordances are scenario simulations and role play, teamwork or team building through presence or co-presence. Virtual worlds is a focus of attention at the moment, maybe not so much as it was a few years ago, but it will be again, and there's certainly a significant amount of attention being paid to it, with programming and modeling and 3D construction and the advent of new virtual worlds and so on. It enables experiential learning activities that are impractical or impossible to construct in the real world. You want to see what will happen to a house as an architectural student if you build it upside down and let the physics engine of the virtual world take over? It'll fall apart. You can't build a house upside down and test how it's going to fall down, what's going to fall first. but you can do that in a second in a virtual world. You can interact with a facsimile of a piece of machinery that is so expensive in the real world that your university can't afford to have one, or that your university restricts access to until you get to be a senior or higher up in your education, because if it breaks or something goes wrong, it's going to be very expensive to replace or to fix. So these kinds of things can be set up inside of a virtual world, and you'll be able to get training or play with it or learn about it. It can be intrinsically motivated, authentic learning activities, because you're in there and you're doing it. And as we said before, it teaches skills that transfer directly to the real world, because we're making experiences and memories of those experiences. We're testing out skills. We're practicing interactions. We're practicing language, and that comes over to the real world, the quote unquote real world. So last fall, I sat down and I went through the list of universities in Second Life, and I went through to find places that were actual university campuses as opposed to installations of an individual professor. At the time, I found 96 universities out of the list that they had. When you put universities in Second Life, it'll tell you 332 places or 22 places come up having something to do with a university. But not all of them are campuses. Some of them are groups or individuals or a gallery or something. So I found 96 campuses, and a few of them had listings but were not there anymore. The Linden Labs is not so good keeping up their wiki list of educational sites, or this, which feeds into the search engine as well. And some had welcome centers with zero traffic, which means that not too many people are coming through there. But what can be happening is that at the time that you come through, for the last 3 months, they haven't been using the facility, and the 3 months before, the 3 months after, they use it quite a lot. So you can't always tell from traffic. And some of the folks who have been writing in blogs and such about how Second Life and virtual worlds are dead and there's no point being interested in them because they're going to go away soon, isn't that wonderful? They will go into a place like Second Life and see a lot of these zero traffic numbers and not understand what it means. And sometimes the comments are pretty interesting, because people will come in from different universities that are very active and say, sorry, but we're not there. We're over in the other part of the campus. So these were from all over the world, and you can see the long list. Australia has many multiple campuses, so 7 universities, but with many campuses, and these numbers have grown. So I went through all of these things, and I made a list, and I made some information about what was going on there, and how active these areas were, just to get a sense personally of what was the real deal in terms of higher education in Second Life. And then I got tired and I didn't finish it. So this year, this is me, very tired in the SLMOOC building, just laying around on one of those couches, altogether to relax. So these are some informal stats. Now, as I was saying before, the Australian and New Zealand Virtual Worlds Working Group have done some amazing work. And I was talking from an article that Sue Gregory published in 2014. And the article that I'll tell you a little bit more about that's newer is from 2015. The article that she was the head author for was co-authored by over 30 individuals from 20 universities out of this consortium. They've had 27 scholarly multi-authored papers from 2010 to 2015 on the work of the group, and are still publishing. A wide variety of applications from history to medicine to architecture, psychology, and physics are still in place in virtual worlds, and these have been detailed in articles elsewhere, as well as other journals such as Virtual Outworlding. This is information about the articles from this working group. This is where you can find all the information about virtual outworlding. And then this is the link to, I think it's the Cotton Club, University of Arizona Africana Studies Virtual Harlem, and that's where the Cotton Club is from. So this is Southern Cross University, which is very active, Monash University, which has several installations, and the University of Arizona. in that particular article in 2014, they were working on what was the usage, what was the discipline that people were in who were using virtual worlds. And you can tell that the majority of them were folks like us in education of one sort or another. And then a little bit of higher education professional development for staff. And then as you go along, you can see health is the next big one, languages, of course, social and behavioral studies, and then a number of other areas are mentioned here. So let's talk about usages. Last year, if you go up to the second floor of the SLMOOC headquarters, you'll see one of the first wall boards as you're coming up the stairs is the talk from Erin Griffiths, who in Second Life is called Isa Goodman. And he is an astonishing designer of teaching spaces. There is a video from our visit to his sim in 2015, and it's really fantastic. He's very, very creative, and he's finishing a master's degree with, I think it's University of West of England, I'm not quite sure, one of these programs from the UK. They give you a master's in finishing a PhD. Thank you, Adriel. University of West of England in Bristol. And some of the things that he showed us last year had to do with the degree work that he was doing, and things were really, really wonderful. I really think you should take a look. This is a YouTube video of this may be his talk last year, because that's Nellie. That's me talking over here, but this was something that he built for training emergency medical technicians in Australia and New Zealand who needed to take their patients by air from one place to another. And you can see that what I'm back. I think I caught Nellie's cold. Actually, everybody in my house has been coughing. So one of the things that he did was he got very much interested in what these were really doing, because for the training, it was very important for the student to be able to come in and interact with these pieces of equipment in the way in which they would interact if they were in a real life situation like this. And quite a lot of what he does has to do with that. He showed us a birthing center. He took us on this plane ride, and then he took us through some other things. So that's a very creative use of what's going on there. This is the University of Sheffield, the InfoLit school, and it's only a part of the campus. You can hear my husband coughing in the background too. They hold courses here. They have a sandbox. They do a lot of work on not only information literacy and learning, but looking at other kinds of topics as well. So this is a great place to go and take a look at. This is their blog, the InfoLit School. This is the University of Glasgow. Last year I had a picture of their commons, but this year I thought this was kind of more interesting. This is their main building, and it shows you the map of all of their various activities in the main building, which is quite a large building. They have a lot of builds out there on the terrain around. And then this gives you these two link boxes are actually both are not identical at all. This is career services, I think disability services, learning services, language services. Over here is the chaplaincy, IT, library registry, and so on. So you can link to these things and get information about how to get involved. And then they have students in classes who are doing projects and are around all the time. Thank you, Jarek. This is really wonderful. Jarek has given us a link to, I know I'm not going to say this right, Academia Electronica, the Jagiellonian University Institute of Philosophy. So I suggest you get out there and take a look at that. I have run into a lot of, I was actually at a Polish university last night when I was going around looking for illustrations, and because I can't read the language, I didn't take the picture, but there are some really wonderful builds in Second Life coming from Poland and all over the world. There's an astonishing mosque from Saudi Arabia that's so detailed you can't believe it, there's the temple the cathedral in Cologne, in Cologne in Germany. The state of, I think it's the state of Jalisco, is still in Second Life. Universidad San Martin de Porres has a lot of wonderful things. Machu Picchu. You just could spend the rest of your life exploring. So before I talk about, well, let me talk about Vicki first. This is a kind of a close-up from that tour in 2014, and that's Eugenio Calderon. This is Vicki Robinson, who is Professor Oddbody Snoodle, and she was taking us around her facility. This is a particular exercise that the students were using to learn about trajectory and speed. So if you click this, a little ball will go through, and you would need to do each one, measure their trajectory and the speed in terms of how they got to these guys at the end here. And then that was the assignment that you turned in for your grade. And then all of these things were assignments or assessments. And over here is their research and development area, where she had a group of students figuring out how to build other possible, oof, thank you, Doris. We'll get these YouTubes up into the playlist too. This was the area back here where everybody was working on what was coming next in terms of assignments and so on. And this YouTube video link will be live when you download the PowerPoint. And the reason why I've got this is I want to show you some of the recent research in this article that I was reading this morning. I'm probably going to go another about 10 minutes. Please don't move the slide. I don't know who has who's a co-presenter here, but I lost my train. Oh, so I was reading this morning. I happened to come over it last night. And again, it's this amazing Sue Gregory. I've written her to ask her if we can upload this into the Moodle and also put it in a giveaway box in the Second Life headquarters building. And I don't think she's going to say no, because it's an online open source journal. But it's called Barriers and Enablers of the Use of Virtual Worlds in Higher Education, and it just came out in 2015 in Educational Technology and Society, with, again, a good group of collaborators from some of the universities we're talking about: South Australia, Southern Cross, the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, and Southern Queensland University of Tech, and so on. She said virtual worlds, or she and her colleagues said, virtual world teaching uses presence pedagogy. And I think that's a marvelous, way of putting it. Presence pedagogy, in which students and instructors become communities of practice. And that's one of the themes of this course. So why are these spaces underutilized or abandoned? Because in reality, many of these places have disappeared. And in some cases, I thought personally that it was the rush to do something trendy. Princeton University used to have this monster campus back in 2009, and Northern Illinois University had a big campus, and Duke was using it for the nursing school and so on. And what happens, I think, is that people get into Second Life or get into a technology because they get a grant and the university's excited. They put it in the hands of an individual professor or a small committee, and then either that committee goes away, the funding goes away. Well, you'll see from the results of this study. But in general, in my head, it was that there wasn't a purpose. People were not following that old adage of make sure your technology fits your purpose, your pedagogical purpose. And if you come in without using what you're going to do or figuring out how you're going to use what you're going to do, you can't just build it. They will not come if you just build it. You have to have a purpose behind the building. That's just kind of my way of thinking about it, and I haven't read far enough around in the literature to know whether I'm dead wrong or if that's a possibility. This is something called the Gartner hype cycle, and this was put together to kind of track what happens to new technologies. That they come in, there's an innovation trigger, they come in, people start finding out about it, people start getting a hold of it, and then suddenly it is the thing, and it's all over the magazines, and it's in all the media reports, and that guy that reviews new technology on YouTube that you love is talking about it. And there's a lot of activity that goes beyond those early adopters. Other people start coming in and seeing it and figuring out what's going on. And then things start to go down. People start to talk about what's wrong with that technology. There's problems with getting the technology to the person, whether it's lag in a virtual world or you're not updating your viewer fast enough or whatever it might be. And the capital that was funding these kinds of pushes into new technology starts falling away, and you get into what's called the trough of disillusionment. And one of the things that people are saying is that Second Life had this peak a few years back. Everybody was excited. All of education was going to move to virtual worlds, and we were all going to be sitting at home in our jammies with our feet up, playing and riding the train in Jalisco, I guess. Now there are a lot of people leaving. There's universities leaving, and we'll talk about why that is from their study. And yet there is a considerable number of people still in Second Life. There's more than 1 million active people every single month. There's still many millions of I'm not sure how you're able to do this, Rosario, but anyway, don't move the slide. There really isn't anything underneath here. There's an enormous amount of money changing hands inside of Second Life. There's always new virtual worlds coming out and on the horizon that does some one thing a little bit better, or is a little cheaper, or has land available, or a lot of the original community members of Chilbo community, for instance, started to complain about the fact that there were too many people in the community and that it was getting too like life. And it was, remember when there were only 1,000 people in Second Life, and remember when we had these avatars that were a little bit definitely look like cartoon characters. So the pioneers tend not to be in a place where everybody is using it. They want to be on the cutting edge, so they kind of run away to the next thing as well. So this is kind of what people think, is we're in this trough of disillusionment, and a lot of us are dedicated to virtual worlds and see that what they afford is something very important. And as we continue to develop our skills and our usages, things are going to get into this slope and to the platform of plateau where people are able to use it on a wider scale. So this is the point at which the real stuff is happening. The buzz and the hype has gone away. We now know that nothing is perfect, and those of us that are still in the virtual world are working hard to use this for the things that they're useful for. So this is the results of the survey from 2015. They had 223 respondents to their original send out of information and invitation to join this study to all the members of that virtual working group in Australia and New Zealand. 223 people responded. 134 were from universities. They were from 38 countries. So that network is global, even though it sounds local and started local. 47% of the people who responded said they preferred Second Life because it was a more mature platform and easier to use. 23% preferred open sim worlds. 7% were in worlds like Jibe or Unity 3D, which has a particularly good physics engine. 3% were in worlds like Reaction Grid or Kitely. And then 20% of them had been in virtual worlds or were now in virtual worlds that were solely owned and on the servers of the university where they worked. Now, what they were particularly interested in was, why were some of these places abandoned? Why are they no longer in use? And what they found was there was a lack of institutional. Oh, exactly. Actually, yeah. And I didn't see Minecraft, Bill, mentioned anywhere in the article, and I went through it. So that's a question to ask Sue. I'll ask her when I hear from her, because I wrote her this morning about uploading their article to the Moodle. Because Minecraft is like in every middle school pretty much, right? I mean, it's all over the place. Not every middle, but all over the place. The lack of institutional support had some flavors. The lack of technical support was really key for a lot of the professors that were there. That the technical people were allowed to, kind of allowed you to put Second Life on your servers, but they didn't know anything about it and they couldn't help you with it. Another thing was the project may have been funded by grants or funded by somebody in a department who was interested in trying out virtual learning, and then the grant fell through, or people were not too interested in what was going on there. And your support in terms of colleague support and so on went away. So funding and technical support were the two most important, lack of institutional support. Then there was also the fact that, and they talk about this in the conclusion, that the universities don't see virtual world spaces as an asset. So where if you build a small building on campus for the chemistry department and they don't want it anymore, they're going to find a use for that building because it's a physical building on campus. The reality with virtual worlds is that it's kind of an ephemeral thing. We don't need to think about this. But there's an enormous amount of work, and sometimes, especially the early adopters, they can spend $30,000, $40,000 getting these universities built by designers, getting all the technology taken care of, getting it set up. And then the group or the faculty member who was running classes there loses their financial support, moves on to another university, retires out of the university, whatever. And the amount of money that was spent on that virtual environment is not thought of as real university money, and the virtual world space is not thought of as an asset. So one of the things that they recommended was that there should be committees set up in universities that understand what are the virtual engagements of their faculty and have some kind of inventory. And when someone leaves a space in some place, don't let it just expire. Who else can use this space? How else might it be used? So to look at these things as a real asset to the university, that's something that they think is important to change this lack of institutional support, which has dampened people's ability to continue on in virtual worlds. When Vicki Robinson, for instance, at the National Institute for the Deaf in the United States started her physics project, it was a grant-funded process. Then it was funded partially by the department, and now she pays the fees for the installation. There's no time to develop spaces or courses. The idea is you're going to do this virtual world stuff. Woohoo, that's great. But we're not going to pay you to do this. So we're not going to pay extra time. We're not going to get you an assistant to help you build something out. You've got weekends. How hard could it be? It's a computer game. So there's this lack of understanding by the administrators about what it takes to really put together a place. I remember Mandy Mimilis, who's Marie Boo's in real life. She's the head of instructional technology in the grade schools in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is in the United States. And she's part of the Virginia Society for Technology and Education when they built the replica of Jamestown, which was the first European sustained European settlement in the United States back in the 17th century. It took them 5 weeks, a group of 6 people, 5 weeks after school and on weekends to build this little installation, which is absolutely a wonderful place. They still have it, and you can go and walk through it and see what the buildings look like and see what the ships look like. And they took something like 500 photographs to be able to make it as real as possible. Then at that point, they were projecting the virtual world on screens in the classrooms, and the kids could watch the teacher walk their avatar through and tell her, click this, click that, the other thing. So there you've got enormous amount of hours that were unpaid, and certainly nobody in the Virginia Beach school system and in many other universities and elsewhere would think of that time as needing to be compensated for, and it's not. And we all live in the real world, so at some point you have to kind of say, I can't do this anymore. A very small number of people were saying their colleagues didn't think it was a great idea and gave them trouble about it, and the students were finding it very difficult to use as well. At least a subset of the students they took in World, so that was why they left it. The vast majority, though, it was this lack of institutional support. and then no time to develop spaces and courses. Now you're getting down into single-digit percentages down here. A few people said the virtual world was unsafe or unreliable, and by unreliable they meant they got into a virtual world that then went bankrupt, and poof, it was gone, and so was your installation and your course material and all that stuff. And then for a very small number of people, they just didn't feel comfortable working in the environment, and that's, that happens. So in the conclusion, they had also asked this particular question. These are learning benefits, and how many people think they're very important or neutral or not important or just a waste of, very not important, whatever would be the code for that. And they had 3 groups of respondents: people who had been working in virtual worlds at these universities, but personally had been working but were no longer; those who were interested enough to be on this list of people who got the questionnaire, but had never actually done a course, never actually done something for their students inside of a virtual world. And I've been interested myself since 2009, and I didn't start bringing my own students into Second Life until last year. So you can be very interested for a very long time, using it for professional development, something else, and haven't brought your students in. So those kinds of people. And then the third kind of people were people who had been working all this time and were still there and still actively using the virtual world for their classes. So what was interesting here was that all 5 of these learning benefits had very high levels of endorsement in all of these groups. In these 2 groups, I believe, I think it was in these 3 groups, the lowest percentage came from the people who had never been into the virtual world. They're interested, but they'd never taught there. They'd never done any actual teaching there. In these 2, it was the opposite. The less endorsement came from the groups who'd been there and left already. So, but I was astonished to see that it ran like this: 66% in the group that had never been in there, up to 82% saying either having a virtual world assisting a learner in gaining familiarity with a place and with the objects in it was very important or important. So I've popped together those 2 categories. Virtual worlds are motivating and engaging for learners. Again, from the group that never got in up to the group that's still using it very actively, 71% to 95% said very important or important. Lead to improved transfer of learning to real situations. Virtually everybody agreed about that. Enable more effective collaborative learning. This went from 76% for the folks who had been in and left. And then the middle range was the group that had never gotten in, and the high range was the group that were still teaching. And the final one was allow learners to learn through experience in context. And again, that was high endorsement. So I found this to be very interesting, that even the folks who'd never been in World had done quite a lot of, were quite positive still about how virtual worlds could bring something unusual to the mix, something valuable to the mix. So that's basically my talk. What I'm just going to give you here now is the resources and then the challenge. This is a taxonomy of virtual world usage that was put together by St. Andrews University in Scotland. Scotland is wonderful in so many ways. But this is definitely an area that many of their universities are interested in. This is just a place that gives you information on how many people on the planet are using the internet, and that's just a lot of fun to go and check and see how many of us 8 billion are playing around. This is another one of articles from St. Andrews Review of Virtual Education, World Education. It's a good bibliographic list if you're interested. This is the Horizon Project on the use of virtual worlds in education, and one of the points that Sue Gregory and her team make is that New Horizons used to be one of those pushers of the hype. They were constantly talking about virtual worlds, the future of education, and now it's like, yeah, it's one of the things that we use. So that may actually be a more realistic way to look at it. these are two good journals that I like to check. They're very different. This is Journal of Virtual World Research. So these are articles like the article that I was just talking about, where you've got people going in and doing surveys or doing assessments inside of virtual worlds themselves. Virtual Education Journal is put together by Roxy. I forgot her name. Azrabil, help me. I have Roxy Nero and BJ Gearbox, and I have forgotten their names in real life. I can't believe I did that. In any case, they did speak for us last year, and you can go to the second floor and click through and see their talk. And it's also in the SLMOOC16 playlist on Nellie's website, Nellie's YouTube channel. This is a journal that's dedicated to communities of practice. So basically, it's showing people what other people are using virtual worlds for, while their headquarters is in Second Life. Every virtual world is represented there. Agile Bill has an article. There's a lot of folks who have wonderful articles there about how they have either used it as thanks, Agile Bill, and the other one from Rockcliffe University, which is a place that it's such a wonderful place. It's so complex, and I didn't want to get into that because we'd be here for another half an hour. Journal of Virtual Studies is also a very important one that Agile Bill just gave you the information for. ISTE, Virtual Environment Network, that you're going to hear about very soon from Scott Merrick and Andy Wheelock. This is an important page. This is their page on their website, the ISTE.org website, about the network. And then these are the playlists from the last 3 years. They're not complete in terms of everything that we went to and everything we saw. I actually have several original movies still left to get up there for you, and we'll do. And what we're trying to do this year is get them out within 24 to 48 hours so that we don't have a backlog like we had before, because April ends and I'm busy, and I haven't gotten them all up. But this will give you quite a lot of information about what we've done before and who has come and talked to us, and about some of the master's programs and things like that, especially Erin Griffiths' talk from last year. So these are resources. If you download the PowerPoint, they'll all be live links. Now, I'm giving you a challenge. And if you're interested in the work of universities in Second Life and other virtual worlds, go into Second Life, click on search. There's two ways to do it. One is in Second Life, you click on the little search button, and that's this guy right here. And when it comes up, you want to switch it to places. This is a drop-down menu, and you want to type in university. You can also try education and see what comes up. It gives you I got 322 results for university last night, and I went down and looked at a lot of these. Some of these are no longer in operation, and when the teleport comes up, it'll say NA, which means not available. And you can go out and see what's there and pop around the place, stand someplace so that we know what university you're visiting, and take a photo of yourself with your avatar. Now, if you don't know how to do that, you don't have to do this challenge until after we have our workshop on using your camera. But if you go up to the Second Life Playground, which maybe somebody can put that, the Second Life MOOC Playground is up on the hill to the north of the headquarters. There are a series of informational boards there that will show you how to use your camera to get a good picture of the front of you. And then you can pop it up in week one, in the week one discussion forum in the Moodle. The other thing you can do, if you would like to do, is go out and take a search Google and see what you can find about universities that are using any virtual world and what they're doing. And there's a number of great blogs out there about virtual world. I would say look for Daniel Voyager and look for Hypergrid, and then there's just lots and lots of other things. And you can do the same thing in YouTube as well. And in YouTube, you can just, if you want, take a screenshot of the video that you found. But this is particularly would be fun to have people go out to universities that are around Second Life and take a picture of themselves and bring it back. And we can either use your photos in the basic skills workshop to make a display board for yourself, or we will also put them up in the Moodle so folks can see them, or you can upload them in the discussion forum yourself and show us where you've been and what you've seen and what it looked like to you. So thanks for your attention. This is my email, and I'm perfectly happy for everybody to email me. You can also IM me in Second Life. I'm Maggie Larimore. And the reason why I'm called Maggie Larimore is because at the time I came into Second Life, you had a list of second names that you could choose. And I kind of liked it. It sounded a little Scottish. And I have some good friends in Scotland, and I used to write science fiction, fan fiction, and used a character called Maggie. So that's how the front name became Maggie. So you can IM me there. You can also take a look at theazire.org to see a little bit more about what my husband and I do, and we have some information about our work in virtual worlds. This is my WordPress that I haven't done very much on, but it has some things from last year when we did a different MOOC. We were involved with a different type of MOOC. And you can follow me on WizIQ and on Twitter and on Facebook and on Pinterest and LinkedIn and all over the place. And certainly come and visit Chilbo. In the Second Life headquarters, you'll find a box. I put it in a couple of places that has the walking and flying tour of Chilbo, and it's really worth wandering around the neighborhood. Not only do we have a haunted house, but we also have a wonderful lake with free bathing suits. And if anybody has any questions, that would be great. Otherwise, we're at 1 hour and 20 minutes, so we probably should shut the course off soon. And as I said, this is a downloadable PowerPoint. It will be up on the PowerPoint list in Moodle not very long from now, and I'm also going to put it up on SlideShare and put the link for you inside a URL giver box in the headquarters, and up on the WizIQ page too if you're a WizIQer. So any questions? Thank you guys for coming. It's so nice to see so many people on what for me is a Sunday morning. And thank you, Doris, and everybody else who's been so busy in the chat. I can't wait to read the chat. I always preview the recording by reading the chat. I almost never see what it looks like on the screen. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, Rosaria, I agree with you 100%. I think learning while playing, learning while gaming is the best way to learn, at least for some of us. We have to think we all learn differently. So, well, thanks everybody for coming, and I'm going to close the class off now, and I'll see you next week, and we'll have a workshop as well. And don't forget to just keep on seeing what's new, keep on learning. So I'll see you soon. And think good thoughts about Nellie. She's in an airport, I think, on her way to Baltimore. So bye, everybody.